Welcome to our second Expat Women's Workshop. This is the second in our quarterly series of workshops focused on an ongoing dialogue about the unique set of challenges and opportunities that are faced by expat women. Before we begin, I just want to mention that we'll be recording today's session and we'll be putting everyone on mute until the Q&A session at the end. And if you do not want this session recorded or the Q&A session, just please put that in the chat box. So let's begin. During our last workshop, we talked about the practical aspects of financial planning, which is a topic I'm familiar with as an expat financial advisor, and I hope you enjoyed that last session. Today, we'll shift gears quite a bit to talk about self-worth and the way in which we perceive ourselves. We have a very special guest with us today to discuss this topic. So let me introduce Anita Sheehan, whose mission is to help individuals and organizations to become more aware of their strengths and passions and to live the lives they really want. There'll be plenty of practical advice from Anita, and I very much look forward to that today. I also want to mention that Anita is in charge of the Spiral Up program, which is a 3-month emotional and mental fitness program. Anita's next group starts up on September 19th, and I hear there's still room in case if you're interested. They meet weekly for an hour to share their experiences, successes, and life struggles. The main idea is really to recognize the voices that sabotage our well-being and happiness, and to find ways to live life with greater ease and flow. So without further ado, I'll turn this over to Anita. Hi, Anita.
Hi, Anya. Thank you so much. And thank you for the very nice introduction here. So yes, obviously, that's what we're going to talk about, discovering our sense of self-worth. And so we're just going to go straight on to the next slide, Anya. And yes, so a little bit more about me in addition to what Anya already said. So I founded this I've been running this Badass Bootcamp for women and the Spiral Up program for women. And at this moment, we're not going to go into this too much. If you would like to connect with me, you can do that at a later time. Yeah, and working mainly with expat women on their path to liberating themselves from their needs and to please and conform at all times. Which so many of us do, and also helping individuals and couples to live more harmonious lives together. So I wanted to also share how I came to this work. A good friend of mine, his name is John Island, and he wrote this book. Oh, he's hard to see, with this background. So, but it'll show up again in the presentation. So it's called The Self-Worth Safari. And when it came out, I read it in one go, and I realized how much I found myself in it and how I needed to include that in my work as well. Myself, I have a long way to go still, but I've made a few steps in the right direction. And I'd like to share with you today what we can do to strengthen our self-worth again. So without further ado, let's move on to the next slide. Yeah, next after that. So what will we do today? This is such a huge topic that all we can do today is plant a few seeds. And we start by understanding the difference between self-worth and self-esteem and why that is important. Then we're going to walk through the 7 shifts that can help us to build our self-worth muscle. Then we'll look at some typical life situations, and some of them may resonate with you. And then we recap with some shifts to build shifts and tips to build self-worth. And then we'd like you to focus on just one that you will focus on in the next couple of days and weeks. All right, so let's go to the next one. So, and here we have a wheel of life that we have adapted a little bit to cover the different areas where self-worth could be important. How happy are you? How happy are you with each one of these areas on your life. So from 1 to 10, just write a number, body, whatever the number, relationship, whatever the number. And we'll get you 1 minute. I don't think we're going to bother with music, but just do 1 minute and just see what comes up. Don't overthink. Ten more seconds. All right. So just come to an end now. And you can put your pen and paper to the side. We're going to come back to that later. All right.
Sounds good.
So, all right, we can go to the next slide. Is there somebody not on mute? Because I hear some noises every now and then. So you can go over this. I cut this out because it will just get too long. You can go to the next one. This one, yes. All right, so here we go. Discovering the difference between self-worth and self-esteem. What you did in your little exercise, you might possibly have rated yourself on self-esteem. What is the difference? So self-worth is the intrinsic and unconditional friendship that you have with yourself, regardless of what you look like, what you have achieved in life, where you studied, what kinds of friends you have, whether you ate a whole bag of potato chips and you didn't go to the gym, you still are a good friend to yourself. You know who you are and you value yourself. What is happening now? Anya. Regardless of whether your technology works or not, we're going to stay very good friends with ourselves, right? So have a look at this tree and you look at the roots. If you look at the roots, they can represent our sense of self-worth. So as long as those roots are strong and long and deep, and our self-worth is as strong and long as deep, we can have failures in our lives. We can be criticized all we want. We can make mistakes, and any setbacks will not topple us over. In contrast, these roots of self-worth are shallow and short and weak. The slightest setback can just make us topple and fall. In fact, there is a story, a friend of mine had an acquaintance who was a high-level executive in a company, and he had to be let go. Now this man had two or three very big cars, nice house, kids in private school. From one day to the next, more or less, he lost all that, and above all, he lost his rank and his status. He couldn't handle it. He ended up in a what you call that, psychiatric clinic. So just to illustrate how when our roots of self-worth are not strong and long, what can happen to us. We need to make sure we build them. And of course, growing up, what happens, we usually grow up in a world of conditional love. Our parents would praise us if we behaved really well. Our teachers would give us a pat on the back when we had good grades, when we paid attention. So all of this, and for our own survival, we built these strategies of pleasing, of perfectionism, of being of hyperachieving and all of these things, and judging ourselves on our achievements, on how nice we are, how kind we are, how competent we are, and all of these things, those things inform us how valuable, how much we value ourselves. So that's why we want to come back and undo all these messages of a lifetime that we have incorporated and which don't always serve us. Now, I would also have to say that, of course, there is a fine line. We all thrive on a pat on the back. We all thrive on appreciation, and it's not wrong. It's just when we rely solely on these approvals, on these good marks, and on the what we get from others. All right. So yeah, let's go to the next one. And probably the next and the next and the next step. I know, let's stay with this. This is a good one. Let's do a little quiz. And so again, on your piece of paper, we're going to go over these questions, and you for yourself, you can mark question by question, and we're going to go one by one. The animation doesn't work here. So we're going to go one by one for you to determine, is this statement a statement of self-worth or self-esteem? A healthy lifestyle is essential to a good relationship with myself. Is that self-worth or self-esteem? If you put self-worth, that was not correct. What's happening now? Yeah. Okay, so it is a question of self-esteem because it doesn't matter whether I have a healthy lifestyle. It is not essential to being a good friend to myself. Of course, a healthy lifestyle is beneficial. And if we are a good friend to ourselves, we will strive to have a healthy lifestyle, but it will not be essential to a good relationship with myself. We allow slippages. It's okay. We'll still be good friends with ourselves. So that answers probably the next question. No matter what, I'm a good friend to myself. Self-worth or self-esteem? Of course, it's self-worth. I'm so proud of my accomplishments. You probably guessed that's a self-esteem. As we said earlier, regardless of our self-accomplishments and our achievements, we can always be still a good friend to ourselves. If I only could find meaningful work, I would feel so much better about myself. Again, that's self-esteem because the little word if gives it away. If it's conditional, if I can find meaningful work. I deserve to be happy. Yes, that's obviously a self-worth. Everybody on the face of this earth deserves to be happy. And I got more answers right than the others. Hey, you know what that one is. So, all right, we can move along. Let's see what happens. You did, I see. Yeah, no, we don't want that. It's too much, too much, too much. Now, let's stick with this. So, after all that you have heard, the question is, how do we connect with our sense of self-worth? You were born worthy. You and nothing has changed. The only thing that has changed is the beliefs that we have acquired about ourselves. The beliefs based on the context in which we grew up. So I invite you now to sit comfortably on your chair and take a few deep breaths in and out. And have a look at this baby. And imagine yourself as that baby. Imagine yourself in your infant years. You were born good enough. You were born worthy. Nothing has changed. And now if you want, you can close your eyes. I want you to again connect with your breath. And feel the seat on your chair. The feet on the ground. And I really connect to that image. If you want, you can put a hand on your heart. Getting in touch with that part of yourself that knows and that is connected to your sense of self-worth. And just notice what's happening in you. Just notice what's happening. And just stay with that for a minute. Okay. And just remember that feeling that you might have had as you connected with yourself, and maybe create an image that helps you remember that feeling. Now you take another deep breath. And come out of this mini meditation connection. So like I said earlier, our self-worth was damaged with every year that we grew older because of all the conditional acceptance that we have experienced in our lives. And we started telling ourselves all kinds of stories about ourselves. And in some areas, we may have retained our sense of self-worth. And in other areas, it suffered badly. And what we're going to do now is go over some tips and some shifts that you can use to recreate your sense of self-worth slowly but surely. So let's start with the first one. Anya, we can go to the next slide. Is it the next slide? No, I think let's do this one. Maybe we can do breakout rooms, 3 minutes per person, 6 minutes total. I invite you now to go into pairs in a breakout room and together answer these 2 questions. Which area could self-worth have most impact for you? And what difference would that make? In other words, how would you walk? How would you talk? How would you show up in the world differently if your self-worth in that area was strengthened? Let's take a few minutes here just to see and hear from some people what has come up for them or what have they become aware of. So is there anybody who would like to share just briefly what has come up for you in the session, in your breakout session?
I'll share. Hi, Anita.
Rhonda, hi. So good to see you here.
Hi, Rhonda.
Hi. Well, I'll just start because it's always hard to get maybe started. The one that came up for me was environment and leisure. And It was the only one that I rated lower than the rest. And I was thinking about, well, why, you said don't overthink it. And I thought, well, why am I rating that lower? And I thought, well, it's because when I'm in an environment where I am super, super contented and happy, which is when I'm near the ocean, not necessarily on a beach, but near a beach and hearing the sound of the waves and all that, I feel a really high level of contentment and self-satisfaction in my, inside. And the other thing is the leisure is to have more time to do nothing, to just relax, just enjoy the moment, maybe read if I felt the need to do that. But things that I really enjoy doing instead of things that are obligations.
Thank you, Rhonda. That's great. And the question is always, what is it that we don't allow ourselves to do or be, right? Yeah. What gets in the way? Yeah. Thank you. Anybody else? We have time for one more.
I will go next.
Can you turn on your video? It'd be nice to see you.
I have a problem in the camera. And the connectivity here is very weak. So
okay, not a problem. If it's a technical problem, we definitely don't want another one. So yeah.
Yeah, I will talk first about the career part. My friend Liz, her and me, we were discussing about that, and she had this. She told me that if she had self-worth, I mean enough, she wanted initially to write a book about her life story, which was very interesting. And because of self-worth, issues, she didn't, but actually she told some people and they told her that it's very interesting. So yeah, if we had more self-worth, I think in the career and work part, it will be more better. For me, regarding myself, I would have in my relationship, if I had more self-worth, I would have not entered in toxic relationships, either with partners or with friends or with family members. So, yeah.
Thank you, Katie or Katy?
Katie.
Katie, thank you. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is kind of tragic sometimes how our self-worth hinders us to live our lives in various areas more fully. And but the good news is, dear friends, we can start to look at ourselves a little bit more in different ways. And perhaps the next couple of shifts will already give you a little bit of an idea as to how you can do that and how you can approach that. So with that, let's go on to the next slide, Anja. Let's see which one we're going to take. Yes. So the first shift, and I'm stealing that from this book here, from my friend. I'm also a trained self-worth coach, so therefore we work with these shifts. And the first shift is basically from assessing ourselves, giving ourselves these subjective labels. As I said earlier, these are all labels we have been giving ourselves depending on whose voices are still in our heads. You know, when our parents said, oh, you know, you're so stupid, or peer or girlfriend or kid from primary schools, oh, your ears are too big. These things stay with us and they just don't go away. And these are labels that we have integrated, not just put on ours, but we've integrated them. And so we want to make sure we actually turn them around and go backwards and erase them and go to a level of self-worth, the same self-worth an infant had, because they hadn't incorporated those labels yet. And you see the positive ones as well. So I'm smart. So some days we're smart and some days we feel good and competent. Next day we make a mistake and then we tell ourselves, well, I'm not that smart after all. And so what's your energy level when you say these things to yourselves? And how does it affect your sense of well-being as well? Has a direct impact on self-being, well-being. Oh, if we go to the next slide, Anya, here's what we can do. So of course it's all words, and the more you can feel these words in your body, the better. So, but here are a couple of things that you can say to yourself. If you were deciding to buy a coat that you really, really like, but it had a higher price tag versus one that is cheaper and will do, you can say yourself, no, I'm going to buy the coat that I really like, that looks really good on me, because I'm worth it. I mean, of course, granted, you should have the money, but sometimes we make decisions to buy the cheaper thing just because we think we're not worth it. So that's just a tiny little example. Also, telling yourself, no matter what, I am enough, I do enough, and I have enough. And if you really think about it, that's probably true. Or you can tell yourself, I'm going to be a loyal and unconditional friend to myself today. And here is another one. Other people's opinions are none of my business. Now, if you have trouble doing this, my invitation to you is imagine your very best friend, somebody who only wants the best for you, saying that to you. Or the other way around, you saying that to your very best friend. Do you see it? Do you see the connection? How we are so well-meaning and so kind and so more positive toward other people than we are with ourselves? Yeah?
Yeah.
Great. So that's shift number one. Let's go to the next one. We have 7, so we have a lot to go through. From condition to expression, what does that mean? Another way of putting that is basically, why do we do what we do? Are we doing something to express our intrinsic motivation, something that we really want to do? Or is it something that do we want to impress people? In other words, are we going to the gym because we value our health? We know exercise is really good for us. Or are we doing it to have the kind of body as a man, you also to get that 6-pack and those muscles to impress the girls, or the man, with a nice figure, losing weight? So always ask yourself, why do I do what I do? Connect with yourself. 90-second rule. Take a deep breath. Why do I want to do that? Is it really because of valuing myself, appreciating and accepting and loving myself, or is it I want to impress somebody? So with that intrinsic motivation, we usually produce much more courageous action. And then as we take that action, regardless of the results, at least we tried, and we have basically owned ourselves. We have owned our motivation. We have owned what we are, what we can do in the world. So that's shift number 2. Let's go to the next one. Shift number 3, 4, 5, and 6. So from self-reproach to self-acceptance. Raise your hand if you ever reproach yourself at least once a day. See, we all have moments where we are not good enough, where we're not kind enough, not caring enough, not smart enough, fill in the blanks enough, right? Welcome to the human race, because we all have those moments, everybody, and that makes us perfect. We're perfect with our imperfections, and the invitation is to accept ourselves the way we are, because everybody makes mistakes. Everybody has a bad day. Everybody makes, says an unkind word or does something stupid. We all do. Give yourself a big hug right now. Let's just do this right now. Give yourself a big hug. Come on, do it just like that. Accept yourself the way you are. Yeah, and do this often. Diana, can you mute yourself, please? Thank you. So yeah, self-acceptance. Next one, self-evaluation. What does that mean? Basically, imagine yourself in a meeting and you're always worrying about, okay, how do I come across? Again, am I smart enough? Am I, what I'm saying, is that relevant and pertinent enough? Or when I go out in the street, do I look the way I want to look? Or shifting to usefulness. Basically, trying to figure out at any given moment, what could be useful in any given situation. And that's what GOSCOP stands for. What does that stand for? It stands for get off self, get on purpose. Basically, wherever you are, rather than trying to worrying about how you come across, to see what you can do, or instead of worrying how valuable you are, how you can be valuable. So there is definitely a shift and a difference there. Next one, should to could. Imagine now for just a second a situation or a comment to yourself when you say yourself, I should be doing this. I should be working an extra hour. I should be going to the gym. I should eat healthier. And then switch that to could. I say the same thing again with could. Can you feel the shift in energy? So that's an easy one that you can try all day long. Next one, proving yourself to valuing yourself. Time to show your boss what a valuable and relevant worker you are. You can also take time out and say, heck, my health is more important. My energy, I want to manage my energy. I'm more important than my company. That's just an example. So anytime you find yourself, you need to prove yourself, take a step back again and say, wait a minute, this is not good for me. I value myself more. Of course, again, nothing is ever black and white. There are moments where you do want to, where you feel like you really want to work that extra time because you're working on a project on a deadline, but it cannot be an ongoing thing. And so the last one is also a very interesting one. So in social situations, trying to make friends, going to a cocktail party, the husband's or your own work team event or company event. I don't know about you, but I hated them because I always thought I had to show up as so interesting, and I put a lot of pressure on me. And the moment I realized, hey, what if I ask other people what they do, what rocks their boat, what's their story, I found a much easier way to connect with them. And then the conversation would flow so easily and so flawlessly. And there's just one caveat. Sometimes when people are invited to talk about themselves, they never shut up. So you have to put your foot down anyway. I mean, there comes a moment where you want to put your foot down, but you get the drift, right? I don't have to explain this any further. So yeah, so these are the 7 shifts. And now let's have a look at a few life situations. because we don't have a lot of time anymore. So we'll just go over them really quickly, and you can just pick out and see what resonates with you. And then you can see, okay, what could I do differently? Have you ever been in a situation where you felt, I'm not worth listening to you? You know, everybody just talks over you, and you feel this small because nobody ever listens to you. So be it in a meeting or in a social situation, what can you do? You just could assess yourself. You could own yourself, focus on usefulness, and practice being interested versus trying to be interesting. So yeah, if you would like to, you can get this presentation so you can go over all of these in depth, in detail yourself. And so that's one situation. Let's go to the next one. I should have done better. Okay, we talked about that. We talked about self-reproach. We all make mistakes every now and then, and or often, and it's okay. The trick is to learn from those mistakes, or we see what we can do better the next time. And rather than blaming ourselves or others, we can just see what happened here in this situation. We're going to come to that again. Focus on usefulness, improving yourself versus to valuing yourself. Thank you. Next one. Boundary setting. That is a huge one with women. And that's why I put here, I have a boundary setting workshop, because especially for us women, we were brought up to be nice and to be serving, and in the process often forgetting our boundaries. And so that's why it's super, super important that we learn to say no, not to be afraid to even hurt somebody. Not bad, but you know, put your foot down when you feel it's not good for you. You're going too far, you're being too giving, and you're neglecting yourself. So very, very important. One more. The same again. It affects women slightly more than men. Also based a little bit on our upbringing. Of course, there are many exceptions. I know them on both sides, but not really being clear about what we really need and want, because we're always so externally focused. Again, that was a survival strategy, because if the people around us weren't well-meaning, we were cooked. We had to survive. We had to always read the others, and we would often give up and forget our own needs and wants. And therefore, reconnecting with our needs and wants is primordial. So we really have to practice that as well. But these shifts can help. Right, so next one. I don't even remember what the next one was. Yeah, so here are a few more tips. They're basically a repetition of what we already said, some of them. So let's go to the next one. So the first one is, before you even step out of bed, the tip is, you know, affirm, or your feet touch the floor, whatever, affirm your friendship with yourself. I'm going to be on my side today. I'm going to take care of my needs today, and putting them first. Putting our oxygen mask on, you know, you've all flown. What do? We need to put on oxygen mask in order to be good for others. If we don't, we run out of that air and steam, and we're not good for anybody. So therefore, make sure you take care of yourself in the best way possible. Great, next one. For instance, when exercising, what's your intention? Is it expression of self-worth because you honor your body, you honor your health, or condition of self-extreme? Express what we need, or impress, you know, in the eyes of others. Great, next one. when meeting a friend or colleague or whoever, or, being at a party, am I interested or trying to be interesting? Try it out. It's really interesting how that can shape the whole conversation, how that can shape the interaction. And yeah, again, always with that caveat in mind. All right, so next one. And so when faced with a problem or any situation, what could be most useful now? Rather than, justifying or self-evaluating, seeing how we come across or justifying any actions that we've done, just gossip. Remember gossip. Right, next one. And we talked about that. When you make a mistake, like we all do, focus on what went wrong versus who went wrong. We often get involved in blaming ourselves first. That's typically, again, women. Men don't have that problem as much. And versus who went wrong. Great, next one. Aha. Our favorite one. So no comment. You can read yourself. Sometimes there are people in our lives that are just so well constructed and usually also suffering from extremely low sense of self-worth. That's why they have to act out in certain ways to prove themselves or to be more interesting or to be more difficult for you. And you don't want to deal with them excessively. You just, if you can, just avoid them and don't get involved. So that's the favorite of a lot of people, I have noticed. So good, thanks. Next one, Anya. So, okay, yeah, this, we wanted to skip these because it would require too much talking and explanation. Same here. So there's a lot of, yeah, should with could. I thought that's a good one. As much as you can, replace your should with could. And I'll have another one. Yeah, go further down. Yeah, I changed that slide, but that's okay. There's a beautiful quote by Tara Brach. Maybe some of you know them. And she says, the revolutionary act of being kind to ourselves can undo a lot of messages of a lifetime, adverse messages of a lifetime. So that kindness to ourselves, practicing that, putting our oxygen mask on ourselves, taking a few deep breaths before we jump into helping somebody without thinking, all of these things are very, very helpful. Anya, just go back one more time. Yeah, okay. So we can't read this and we don't have to read this. At this point, what's the time right now? Yes, so okay, we're almost coming up to the half hour. I'd like you to now use the chat. And each one of you put in the chat a shift that you would like to focus on in the days going forward. And just something that, because to do all 7 shifts, you probably never do any, but if you can just pick one that you want to focus on. Dealing with difficult people, yeah. Just put it in the chat. Anybody else? Don't be shy. Thank you. Second guessing myself. Yep. Going to be my best friend. Yes. Interested, not interesting. Yep. Right. Anyway, even if you don't share, just write it down for yourself. Yes, beautiful. Expressing my thoughts and desires in the open more often. Yes, thank you. So just write down one point for yourself and look at it every day and connect with it every day so that you remind it, because we forget. Our days are so busy, we forget these things constantly and constantly. So it's good. You can put a reminder on your computer or your fridge or whatever, with whatever shift you have chosen to focus on. And as we said, we can share the presentation with you. And Anja, I forgot how we wanted to do that.
Yes, thank you, Anita. Thank you for the wonderful presentation with lots of practical advice. That was amazing. And thank you for not minding the technical difficulties that we faced today. But really, really lovely presentation. We will be sending out a follow-up email with a copy of the presentation, and assuming that the recording has worked out okay, we'll include the recording as well. So we'll be sure to follow up with everybody. And given the time, given that we came upon the full hour, we don't have a ton of time for questions. However, we will be sharing, Anita, your direct contact information as we have on the screen. So everyone that participated today or anyone else will be able to reach out and ask those questions to you. But again, thank you everyone for attending. Anita, thank you so much for a very practical presentation that I think got a lot of us thinking about how we approach every day, and how can we be kinder to ourselves every day too. So thank you so much. We certainly would love to invite you all to our next quarterly workshop, which will be on August 31st. We'll talk about, at that time, we'll have a guest speaker talking about hormones and how hormones affect our daily lives. So definitely a very relevant topic there as well. And on that note, we'll end today's session, and we'll look to hearing from you guys and how you like today. And again, very much thank you for coming to see us. And thank you, Anita.
Thank you, Anja, for hosting and for giving me this opportunity to share. And also remember, it is one thing to think about things, but the more you can integrate that into your body, the more you can connect viscerally with these thoughts, the more they will stick, because all these beliefs have been integrated viscerally in our bodies, in our cells. So that's the place from which we need to undo these messages. So that's my last little tip. And I hope maybe to connect with some of you. If I'm here, if you need me, and I'll be happy to talk to you further and go deeper if and when you wish. So
thank you so much.